guys, we're back with episode 2 of Third World Airports, and before we start off, Adam and I just want to thank you all for the love and support on the first episode. I think we had over 50 views and 7 subscribers. Anyway, so yeah, we're very thankful and we're excited for...
Big things are coming.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just get into it. First off, let's just talk about our predictions. I know we haven't really filmed since Election Day, but what about you? How do you feel about your prediction?
I feel sad almost that I was able to predict it because I did not want Trump to win.
Uh-huh.
I was hoping against hope that Hillary would win, but there was a lot of angst in this country, and it just goes to show that you can't ignore flyover country. You have to campaign everywhere you think is important in this election.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we can say about both parties and the future of the parties, but we have to accept it. Donald J. Trump is the president-elect of the United States, and we don't know what's going to happen, but after the last 2.5 weeks, we have had some cabinet appointees, and that's what's been on the news lately, and there's been criticism, there's been backlash, but I think we should start off with Reince Priebus, the RNC chair, who we appointed as chief of staff. What do you think about him, Adam?
Well, for someone who really wants to drain the swamp, I think it's quite the interesting pick of, a mainstream Republican and a man who definitely did help Trump win the election.
Mm-hmm.
The RNC gave Trump a lot of campaign organization. They did help. Without the RNC, Trump would have been on his own in a campaign that was largely propelled through social media, but they gave him a base. But, it's not exactly what his supporters want, but I'm sure that, they'll be appeased by, or not, a lot of his hardcore supporters will be appeased by Stephen Bannon, who I'm sure you have a lot to talk about with.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say a few things about Priebus. I think it's interesting that he's another Wisconsin guy. He's friends with Paul Ryan. And I don't know how you feel about Paul Ryan, about how establishment he is. But when it comes to draining the swamp, it's an interesting choice. But I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt just because he was the RNC chair. You need the RNC to be elected. To have a successful campaign as a Republican, you need the RNC to back you. And as you said, the strategies that were implemented and the relationships that Priebus does have within the Senate and the House is something that Trump needs to at least start getting things done. So, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens from there. But as you said, Bannon is quite an interesting choice. What do you think about him?
Well, I think Steve Bannon, for me, living in New York, not really having a lot of contact with what people would consider people to be the alt-right, so I'm not really that knowledgeable about, what people all over the country think, but it's scary. Steve Bannon is, he's known as a nationalist. Whether or not he's a white nationalist, he says he's an economic nationalist. Either way, he has been purported to have said anti-Semitic views. Apparently he didn't send his daughter to a school because there was too many Jews in the school. That's honestly, as, a Jew living in America and as a person who doesn't want to see oppression or doesn't want to see discrimination against any type of people in America, it's scary. It's definitely scary.
Yeah.
I hope that Priebus can sort of counterbalance Bannon. I really do.
When it comes to Bannon's selection, he's definitely not part of the swamp. That's for sure. I don't think he's establishment at all, and we've seen that through his views and who works for him and what his articles are about. But there is people like Milo Yiannopoulos, who is a homosexual Jew who works for him. He also on his UK branch, I forgot his name, but he's a dark Muslim who also works for him.
Look, that doesn't necessarily...
I don't know how much of this backlash he's getting is just the liberal media making something bigger than it is. But the way he claims it is the way he spoke is the way the Navy spoke 30 years ago. I don't know if that's justified or not, but we also have to look at the fact that once Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon came into the picture, they turned the Trump campaign around. And it can be argued that he is one of the main reasons Trump is president today.
So, I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you to our friend Billy Pisa for... This relates to having us here because we were able to have laptops. I know Dave's laptop could basically eat mine, but I looked up this headline right now, and you said Steve Bannon ran Breitbart News, and these are some of the worst headlines that Breitbart has ever run. Bill Kristol, Republican spoiler, renegade Jew. That's a headline. World Health Organization report. Trannies 49 times higher HIV rate. No, that's not necessarily if that's true, it's not the worst headline, but sympathy for the devils, the plot against Roger Ailes and America.
But I would also ask, these can be headlines under Breitbart News, but he might not be the writer, because we know Milo Yiannopoulos is homosexual, Jewish, conservative, and some of these headlines are his.
Have you seen some of the things
One of the things is like, just he's would you rather have your child deal with feminism or cancer or something along that line?
Yeah, but Breitbart is the leader. I mean, not Breitbart. Bannon is the leader of Breitbart.
Yes.
Just because Milo Yiannopoulos is a Jewish gay writer it doesn't excuse anything he says. It's not an excuse just to say those things at the expense of politeness. I mean, not even politeness, just being decent to other people. I mean, there's no hiring bias against women in tech. They just suck at interviews.
That was a.
This is the man.
That was a Milo article. I know that.
This is the man the man who oversees this website.
But this is the alt-right movement. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's this nationalist, populist, anti-political correctness views. But I do have to say that under Bannon as helping Trump's campaign, Trump did soften on many of his harsh stances.
He just flip-flopped,
and that was under Bannon. So we don't know for sure how much of an influence of Bannon's toleration of anti-political correctness will affect the campaign, because Trump has already flip-flopped on many things that Steve Bannon would obviously be against. So I don't know. We don't know exactly what his influence is in this campaign, but he's in there for a reason.
I mean, they say he's chief strategist. I hope he doesn't turn into chief propagandist.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll see. Looking at these headlines, I mean, birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. Like, some of this stuff, I know that could be a Milo headline. That doesn't excuse it, in my opinion. But
I would also argue, like, this is conservative satire. There's liberal satire all over the news. And there's so little of conservative satire that the second that there is, it gets attacked. Right. I watched a Milo interview today, and he was saying that obviously, like, some of the things he's saying are like satire and they're in a jokingly manner. And if you read the articles, you would see what they actually say rather than just look at the headlines.
Okay, but Breitbart right now, you can say satire, and that's fine. Last month, it had 300 million users, 40 million unique users. People aren't taking this as satire; they're taking it as real news. Just like Facebook right now is in a scandal because of it had too much fake news.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it's meant to be. It matters what it is. And if it is, people are taking this as real news and as serious because, you know, you want to be taken seriously. So you're telling me Milo Yiannopoulos wants to be a jokester, but at the same time doesn't want to be taken seriously? Look, it's just... I understand it's a part of this country that wants to be heard, and I totally understand that. But, and there are some legit grievances that, you know, whites have been overlooked in this country, it appears to be, and so... But to say, you know, birth control makes women unattractive and crazy, or to just say totally provocative and, you know, just totally untrue headlines, it discredits the whole movement, I think. Not the whole movement, but at least it discredits the factualness of some of the articles, and people take it as real news.
I mean, we also saw that on the left with journalism backing Hillary Clinton and what it did to them.
Yeah, I know.
But journalism is in an interesting place right now, especially with this election. But once again, we don't know exactly what effect Bannon will have on the Trump administration. But let's move on to another cabinet pick for Attorney General, Senator Jeff Sessions. Another person who's supposedly controversial among the left. What do you think about him?
You know, having read a couple of articles on him, I don't know him personally. I know that early in his career, in the 70s and 80s, he did make racist comments. And, you know, during the Reagan years, he was put up by Congress. Oh no, appointed by Reagan to be a lower court judge, and Congress, which was fully Republican, could have approved him and did not because of his racist comments. One of them being that a white lawyer did not do justice to his race for defending black defendants, and so, look, this is the man we want to be the top lawyer in our country. I hope he's reformed. I know he's hardline on immigration, and I know he takes a hard line on what else did you say he takes a hard line on?
He's also known to be a war hawk and a dead hawk.
Dead hawk. Look, I don't know how I don't know how in general he's gonna be able to implement his policies, but he does make me uncomfortable. Not as uncomfortable as Bannon though.
Okay.
Look at the stuff he said here, guys. Yeah.
What did he say?
What did he say, Billy?
You just scroll down here.
He allegedly said he thought the Ku Klux Klan was okay until he found out they smoked pot.
Keep going down. There's a lot there, yeah.
So, this is the man that's going to be the top lawyer in our country. Like, how... I don't want to make any baseless accusations against him, but if he truly did say that, then... we need to have fair-minded lawyers in our country, and we need to have fair-minded government, and to have someone who's just already... who supports a hate group like the KKK, I don't know. That's bad. That's bad. He allegedly used the N-word after a court hearing.
Once again, a lot of this stuff is from 30 years ago. People can change, and if we just go off, we have to, once again, this is... I think that this is more of just liberal headlines doing everything in their power to make people who Trump assigned look as bad as possible. And of course, I don't think it's right for him to say these things, but if we look at policy and things he's done, that's something that we should look at more in depth and see what he's done. And once again, I don't know if he's the right fit for Attorney General, and we have to look at why he was appointed, and he was the first standing senator to endorse Donald Trump. He's helped him with immigration policy, been there with him throughout the campaign, through the primaries and through the general election. So I think there's also favors already happening, sadly.
It's a spoiled system.
It is a spoiled system. And I still know that there's people on the left, like Elizabeth Warren, who are saying she will do anything in her power to get Jeff Sessions to not be the Attorney General. So we'll see what happens with the votes as well.
About Trump's cabinet and about a lot of things that are going to happen under Trump, I think this is important to note because... the left is not going to be able to stop everything Trump does. They have to choose their battles. If you don't want Bannon, you have to fight him. You can't. What I'm saying is, there's a Republican Senate, Republican House, and the president's Republican. There's going to be a lot of things that people on the left are not going to want to get passed. Which sadly, which could be sad, but you have to oppose selectively because you're not going to be able to win every battle.
Yeah.
There's just no way. So, right now the battles are already starting apparently, but hopefully there can be some sort of happy medium met.
Yeah, we'll see. He's already softened up on a lot of policies.
Yeah, it could be a fence, not a wall.
We could, there's examples of that. And the other appointees were Assistant to the President for National Security and Director of Central Intelligence Agency. So Michael Flynn and Mike Pompeo. Do you know anything about them or have any thoughts on them?
Flynn was an early Trump supporter, and I know he's not necessarily a war hawk. He's not just he's not a neocon. So I know that people in the alt-right actually definitely like him for that reason. Flynn is definitely qualified. I don't think you can say that he's inexperienced. And as a general in this country, that gives him a lot of, I guess you'd say, it gives him it gives me a sense that he can do the job with the best interest of the U.S. in mind. So regardless of his policy, I'm not uncomfortable with that choice. Okay. Well, what do you think of him?
I think it's an interesting choice. He's a Republican, but he acknowledges the fact that the Iraqi war was a strategical disaster. and I think it does take some. It takes as a Republican who probably did support George Bush, it does take something for you to admit that and to admit that there was a fault in your party and the way it was handled. So I think that's a good sign for sure. And once again, I don't think his political ideology has that much of an influence on his position. He's here to protect our country and just make sure it's safe. And I just think that, once again, I think it's a comfortable choice. And when it comes to the things like the Iran nuclear deal and fighting ISIS and being the world leaders and the world police, we'll see what happens. Because, once again, Trump's say is still stronger. So we'll see what happens with this choice as well.
I mean, going back, looking at Flynn, like, look, again, as we were saying, like, there's you have to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
I'm sure the left wouldn't like him. I mean, he wants to lock Hillary Clinton up.
Mm-hmm.
He chanted it at rallies too. But as on the terms of experience and at least, not being totally out there, you choose him. So we're going on to Mike Pompeo now.
Yes, Mike Pompeo. Now he was a Kansas congressman.
He led the Benghazi hearings, right?
Yes, he's a new face in Trump's circle, so he's a recent name. He's known for being a hardline Republican, and they say he shares a lot of views similar to Trump. And he's known to be heavily against the Iran nuclear deal. He blasted Clinton over the attack on the U.S. diplomacy in Benghazi, and he wants to lock her up. And he believes that Edward Snowden should be executed if he were to come back to the country.
Now that's, as a director of the CIA, that's quite, the radical positions to take.
Mm-hmm.
Even Trump said it himself. He was asked in an interview, and he said, would one of your priorities be to appoint a special prosecutor for Hillary Clinton? He said, I want to focus on jobs, I want to focus on the debt. So I think at least Trump is saying, look, let's focus on the people of our country rather than the issue of the election and Hillary Clinton, which has already passed. Now I hope Pompeo doesn't turn, if he's the CIA, doesn't turn into a three-ring circus, meaning doesn't just, emphatically and unwearingly go against Hillary Clinton because, our country has to move forward, not backwards.
Yeah.
And Hillary Clinton is not in office, Donald Trump is. To execute Edward Snowden, I didn't know that, but...
I mean, that's an interesting conversation in itself. Whether
this whole thing in Iran is that we have it another time.
I mean, with Snowden, I don't know. That's a whole thing right there. Whether you think what he did was
patriotic or
traitorous. We don't. I mean, once again, I don't think he should be the focus. I don't think Hillary should be the focus.
We have to look forward. We can't look back.
Yep. Well, anyway, so that's what we have on his cabinet picks.
I have a question for you guys before we move on.
Sure. Billy.
Out of all the people Trump selected to his cabinet, who do you think is the most liberal? I know most of them are conservative, but who would you say is the most liberal side?
That's interesting.
I know a lot of them are conservative.
Because they're all conservative, and at this point, as someone who leans center of left, and I know that you lean right, but the one who I would say makes me feel the least uncomfortable would be Pravis, only because he's more of a known quantity.
Yes.
Is he the most liberal? I don't know. All of his policy issues, but can he be reasonable? I hope.
I think I would agree with you on him because he's known to be center right. He's not crazy Ted Cruz conservative, and he's also not. I mean, I would consider Donald Trump on his policies pretty liberal, and he's not to that extent either. He's a solid moderate Republican, and coming out of Wisconsin, that's what you can expect in a politician. But his views might be the most liberal, but when it comes to his position, his political views have the most influence as well. Because you might have someone like Michael Flynn who can be a hardcore conservative, but his political views affects his position only to a certain extent. So you can weigh these things out. But yeah, I would agree that when it comes to views, Pravis is probably, from the left, their safest bet.
All right.
Good question, Billy.
So that ends this segment of Third World Airports. We hope if you haven't subscribed yet, please give it a sub, as Dave called it. All right, thank you.